Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the virtual gala for CHADS Coalition for Mental Health. I'm Art Holliday, KSDK TV and KTRS Radio. We are all on the same team when it comes to raising awareness about mental health. Jennifer Blome and I have a recurring mental health segment on our KTRS radio show. I produced a documentary about schizophrenia's effect on a local family in Glendale. And I've done numerous TV news stories about depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and suicide. Tonight I'm preaching to the choir, and that's okay when you're trying to raise money for a worthy cause. It's my pleasure to get things started. So let's have a great night supporting CHADS Coalition for Mental Health.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 CHADS Illumination Ball. Thank you so much, Art, for that warm introduction and just for the love and the crucial work that CHADS is doing right now. Really appreciate that. I don't need to tell you how 2020 has been a year, well, unlike any other we've all faced. Big, tremendous challenges. CHADS, no exception. I've been involved in this event for the last 3 years, but nothing has been more special because of what all my friends have overcome. The pandemic could have knocked them down, but it didn't. In fact, it made them stronger. So tonight, you're going to meet some incredible people who are giving everything they have to give to youth and families in our community. So I'm excited to be with you as we celebrate all CHADS has done and all CHADS will need to do in the year ahead. You're going to hear from staff, community supporters, and you're going to hear from people who've been impacted by this organization's great work. You'll also have a chance to get involved in all they're doing. CHADS will need all of the help it can get to meet the incredible need in our community, and we'll invite you to show your support for all that we're doing. There are multiple ways to give tonight, and I'll make sure to remind you how to do this throughout the program, but I'd like to run through the information just real quick. On your screen, you should see a little QR code, and you can zap it with your phone, your smartphone camera, and click on the link and it brings up, or if you don't want to do the camera, you can type that little bit.ly link into your browser, that works, or if you do, make sure you open a new window, because if you don't, you'll leave this page and we don't want to lose you. Now, to make this even easier, we have a third option for you. If you are not watching this video in full screen, you will see a little donate button at the bottom of the video. You can also click this to donate. All three of these links will take you to a donation page with the option to make a donation in full today. So you can set up a monthly payment via credit card or make a pledge, pay by check, anything. Lastly, if you prefer, you can call the number on your screen and leave a message with your name, phone number, and donation amount. You'll receive a call back within 48 hours to process your gift. We will be offering giving levels later in the program, but of course, feel free to give at any time. In case you didn't already know this, through the CARES Act, you can deduct $300 in charitable contributions on your 2020 taxes, even if you don't itemize. So really, there's no reason not to give this evening. For everyone who makes a pledge or donation online, I'm also excited to share that we will be showcasing these gifts on screen. If you don't want your name or dollar amount to appear on the screen, that's fine. Just check the appropriate box on the giving form. Now, before we kick off with our first speaker this evening, we wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for our super generous sponsors. Thank you so much to our Torch sponsors, Ascension and Let's Build Hope. Thank you. And tonight's Spark sponsors, Emerson, Lou Fuse, Mercy, Missouri Baptist Medical Center, Renaissance Financial, and RGA. Your gifts have made such a difference in this tough year. We also introduced a new giving level this year for individual donors whose names should be up on the screen. Thank you to our individual sponsors for your incredible generosity. Appreciate that. Right now is the time. So if you haven't done so already, sit back, maybe pour yourself a little drink, enjoy the celebration of a wonderful community institution. Now I'd like to turn it over to a woman who, well, she needs no introduction. It's CHADS co-founder and executive director, Marion McCord.
Thank you, Gene. I'm so excited you could all be with us tonight to celebrate the great work of CHADS. For those of you who are new, CHADS stands for Communities Healing Adolescent Depression and Suicide, and we work to save young lives by advancing the awareness and prevention of depression and suicide. CHADS means something deeper to me and my husband Larry, though. Chad was our son, who lost his battle with depression and lost his life to suicide in 2004. We started CHADS in his memory to reach the young people who are fighting the same silent battle he did, and to be a voice for the youth who have died by suicide and no longer have a voice. Today, CHADS is the largest provider of evidence-based suicide prevention programming in the St. Louis area, reaching more than 57,000 students, teachers, and parents in 2019. We're reaching kids who were like Chad and saving lives every day. Tonight, we'll talk about what we're doing to continue that life-saving work during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not easy, but with your help, we're carrying out this vital mission. Once again, thank you for joining us tonight. Now, I'd like to hand it over to two very special people, Amy Worth, this year's event co-chair, and her husband, Brad Worth, president of our board of directors.
Thank you, Marian. CHADS provides us with hope, inspiration, and fulfillment through helping others. After losing our son, Michael, to suicide in September of 2014 at the age of 18, we quickly became acquainted with CHADS. As we were preparing to go to the funeral home, Amy noticed a Facebook post about CHADS Coalition. We asked a couple of questions and decided that we would direct donations in Michael's memory. Little did we know at the time that the significant financial support directed to CHADS would pale in comparison to the benefits that CHADS would provide our family and the broader St. Louis community. Shortly following this, we met Marian and Larry at an event. Marian wanted to ensure we had some time to get to know each other better, but most importantly, she wanted to get to know Michael. Our next get-together, which was planned for an hour, turned out to be 4 on the Friday following Thanksgiving. We knew we made the right choice by selecting CHADS as a place to honor Michael's memory. The sincerity and genuine concern for each child who has been lost to suicide reminded me of what we continued to learn about Michael. He routinely checked in on his friends to see how they were doing and if they needed support. Michael's interest in student leadership and helping others is a value he unknowingly shared with CHADS. CHADS' impact on our community has grown significantly since we first met Marian and Larry almost 6 years ago. Prior to COVID-19, it was difficult to name a school in our area where CHADS wasn't physically present. Through the dedication of staff and leadership, CHADS has been innovative and discovered ways to continue to impact our community. While CHADS has been able to achieve its goals and grow its impact, continuing to do this will require additional financial support. As the newly elected president of the board of directors of CHADS, I am honored and humbled to play a larger role with an organization that is creating awareness of depression and preventing suicide among our kids and adolescents. As we continue our journey with CHADS, we are filled with hope, inspired by the impact of saving young lives, and fulfilled by continuing to help others. Now I'd like to turn it over to my beautiful wife, Amy.
Michael's smile brightened the day. He was silly and loved making others laugh. He loved his family and his friends, but struggled so much inside. He left us way too soon. CHADS has played an important part in our lives during the last 6 years. We don't want anyone to go through the pain of losing a child. We know that when CHADS implements a plan, they carry it through and lives are saved. We know that when we donate or raise money for CHADS, it's going to help save the life of someone's child. We know this because all programs are tracked and outcomes reported. This is my 4th year co-chairing this event, and I am so proud to be a part of it. I am honored to work again with my co-chair, Michelle Deal, along with Ben Chambers, CHADS Development Director, and Stacy Erker, Event Coordinator Extraordinaire. I thank our wonderful committee for all of their hard work and support during this new adventure called a virtual gala. I think we all had concerns about how this would work, but I'm happy to be here tonight. Even though we are physically apart, we are together. In these uncertain times, it is so important to connect in new ways. CHADS is doing this every day by moving their services online to safely support children who need support now more than ever. Tonight, we have an opportunity to band together and show our support for CHADS because, like the children CHADS serves, CHADS needs our support now more than ever. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, learning about, and supporting this incredible organization called CHADS. Now I will hand it off to Jean.
Thank you so much, Brad and Amy. I've known the Worth family for decades, and it never ceases to amaze me everything they've been through. and everything they continue now to accomplish, their family's pain is immeasurable. But their commitment to saving lives and preventing that tragedy from falling upon others is a true inspiration. Now, I'd like to introduce another inspirational couple, Gala co-chair Michelle Deal and her husband and CHADS board member, John Deal.
Thanks, Jean. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight for our first CHADS virtual gala. I have to admit that I was skeptical at first about this idea, but after I learned more about how it could work to bring all of us together, I came around. We've had some really memorable galas in the past few years, but this year, with the help of an amazing committee and modern technology, we can continue to support CHADS' important work and mission, even though we cannot gather in person. This is very personal to John and me. Many of you know that we lost our dear son Kevin in 2015 to suicide. He was a fourth-year medical student just weeks away from graduation when he became severely depressed and lost his battle with mental illness. Kevin was the life of the party, and he always thought of others first. But the isolation, rigors, and stress of medical school took its toll on him. He was always about helping others, but when he was the one in need of help, we realized firsthand the real stigma and barriers to mental health treatment. Needless to say, every parent's nightmare thrust us into a very dark time. But we found out about CHADS Coalition, we met Larry and Marion, and we realized that sadly Kevin's story was all too common. Shortly afterward, we met Amy and Brad, who had recently lost their dear son, Michael. We had an instant support system with these amazing families, and the rest is history. We are all committed to doing whatever we can to support this incredible organization that works so hard each and every day to identify and support so many kids in need of life-saving mental health services. My husband, John, has recently joined the CHADS Board of Directors, and I'd like to introduce him to say a few words.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, I feel very privileged to be able to join this board. One thing I want everybody to know is that, as Michelle said, not only does CHADS Coalition support those who have been diagnosed or who are struggling with this type of diagnosis, but it also helps support the families who are helping them go through it. I know when our son Kevin was at his really most difficult and dark time, we received a letter from a person who worked at CHADS and who also happened to be a very dear friend of our daughter's. And in that letter, he had described how he had struggled with mental illness and how CHADS had come into his life early, given him guidance, and helped him move on into a very happy and healthy life. Getting that letter provided us hope that we had no more of. We shared that with our son, and for a moment, just one moment, we had hope. It wasn't until about 6 weeks later that we met Larry and Marion. And again, just like with Brad and Amy, the bond was almost immediate. And they gave us two pieces of advice which we've taken to heart. One is that we would feel happiness again, that we would feel joy in our lives. And two is that we had, at some point in time, to be able to celebrate this person's life. Kevin, in his short 26 years on this earth, did so much. And we have found that direction and that advice to be very, very helpful. And so now we're glad that we can give back.
While we know this year looks different, the implications of COVID will have lasting effects on our youth and their battles with mental illness. It is more important now than ever that we continue to support this organization that has provided so much support to us. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to turn this back to Jean.
Thank you, John and Michelle. Just like the Worths, your story is an inspiration to me and everyone here watching at home. Thank you for all the work you're doing to support this great organization. Now, let's hear more about the work CHADS does to support our community from Megan Hogerby, CHADS SOS facilitator and mentor.
I believe CHADS does a lot for the community. We go into so many schools and see so many kids, and some of the kids we see are in crisis at the moment, and we're able to throw them a lifeline and connect them with someone to talk to right away. Some of the kids we talk to, we may be giving them a vocabulary for what they're feeling and thinking, but haven't been able to articulate or express. And some of the kids, they're they're not feeling anything in the moment, but just from the education that we give them, there is likely some point in their life where they will be able to go back and remember what we talked about, and they'll be able to use that information for a friend of theirs or for a way that they're feeling in the future. So we really meet people wherever they're at and able to help them with information they can use throughout the lifespan.
Thanks, Megan. This work is so important, and we need to make sure these services continue to be available to our youth. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this year CHADS has been through challenges none of us could have ever imagined a year ago. When Marion McCord co-founded CHADS, I don't think she could have anticipated the need to bring services to kids 100% virtually. And when the COVID-19 crisis began, she was the person tasked with leading the charge, and she rose to the challenge. I'd like to hand it back over to Marion to tell you about all that she and the team have done to help CHADS continue to provide their important services through the crisis. Take it away, Marion.
Thank you so much, Jean, and thank you to everyone joining us here at home. Last year, when I spoke at the Illumination Ball, I couldn't have imagined what the next year would bring. We have all experienced such hard times, but being together virtually with all of you makes my heart full of gratitude. The story of our community's struggle with COVID-19 mirrors the story of CHADS in so many ways. It's sometimes through the most horrible tragedies we find the most profound sense of hope. And I see that happening in our community. Family, friends, and neighbors are coming together in ways they never have before. That includes all of you joining us tonight. These are dark days, but by coming together for our children, we will guide them through the pandemic and make sure the world waiting for them on the other side is one where they can thrive. The last 6 months have changed so much at CHADS. Our staff no longer see each other in the office. We no longer see youth or their parents face to face in schools. And we can't come together for big events like we're used to. That hasn't changed our focus, though. We're still working hard, day in and day out, to save young lives. Our youth need us right now, and I can't begin to express my gratitude for the dedicated staff who had made it possible for us to meet the need when the pandemic started. It would have been easy for us to suspend our operations and go home. Our team wouldn't dream of that. They worked night and day to set up virtual programs, which you'll hear about over the course of the night. Kids are navigating so many things they never should have to experience right now. But they won't have to do it alone. CHADS is here for the long haul, but the road ahead won't be easy. A June survey from the CDC found that 75% of youth aged 18 to 24 reported some adverse mental health symptoms, and shockingly, 25% said they had considered suicide. This is a generational trauma unlike anything we have experienced, and we'll all need to work together to heal the scars. Our work will matter long past the end of the pandemic. We know exactly how we will work to help the youth impacted by this through evidence-based programs delivered safely over virtual platforms. The question is, how far we'll be able to stretch and how many youth we'll be able to reach. That's where you come in. Over the course of the night, I ask you to listen closely to these stories and consider what you can do to help. There are so many young people who need our help, and I'm confident we'll be able to reach them together. Now, I'd like to share a video about all CHADS has been through this year and all our staff have done to keep our mission alive during these challenging times.
My oldest, Nick, is an amazing young man. He is one of the most empathetic people that I've ever met. One of the biggest challenges for my husband and I is to help him see himself the way we see him. Earlier this year, Nick had started to date. He had his first girlfriend, and he had mentioned to me one night before bed that he had had a rough day. He wasn't really opening up as much. He said, "Mom, I don't want to talk about it." I said, is it about your girlfriend? And he nodded. And I said, are you worried about her? And he nodded. And he showed me a text from her, but had part of the text covered up, which kind of put my mom sensors up. And it was concerning, and it was about self-harm. And I said, Nick, we need to talk to your counselor. And he said, Mom, I already did. He left for school that day, and there was just something nagging at me to check his phone. And as I started to dive into those texts, I realized that he was reciprocating those feelings in text with her, talking about, killing yourself, and if you do it, I'll do it. My heart sank. Seeing those texts was the worst moment of my parenthood to date. With our situation, we didn't have a year to wait to get in to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So for us, the ability to get in quickly with experts who deal with this, particularly with youth that are thinking about suicide, was huge. We thankfully are not in the emergent stage, but we continue to meet with Devin, and thank goodness we had about 4 meetings with her in person before we went into quarantine.
My first concern was how they would be able to continue getting the services and support that they need. CHADS did not have any telehealth services prior to the start of this pandemic, so I was very concerned that the rug, so to speak, was going to be pulled out from under them and that they were going to be left with no services.
So in a matter of about 6 weeks back in April, we took our family support program, which was 100% in person, and we completely pivoted and created our what we call telebehavioral health programs.
Telebehavioral health works similarly to a normal therapy session in person, but we utilize a HIPAA-compliant platform to connect via video sessions. So clients are able to use their smart device to connect to the session through the platform. And then the rest is similar to a therapy session that they would have either in our school program or through our office.
Nick still has that connection with her, and he's able to voice, if there are issues, he can talk to her, but he is doing really great right now, and it truly is because of CHADS.
CHADS is still here, and we are ready to continue making an impact.
We still have the same mission statement and values, and that's not changed since the pandemic. We are still communities healing adolescent depression and suicide. We've just had to shift the platform to continue making that difference.
The work that CHADS does is truly life-saving. I cannot imagine how differently our lives would have been if we did not have a resource like CHADS to help Nick. A donation to CHADS truly saves lives.
Thank you so much to everyone for sharing your personal stories about what's happening at CHADS. I knew this would be a challenge for a growing agency like CHADS, but your resilience is truly an inspiration. To everyone who was featured in this video and every CHADS staff member watching at home, you are truly incredible. I hope you're as moved by these stories as I am, and I look forward to sharing more of these stories with you throughout the rest of tonight's program. Just as important as how CHADS got here, though, is how we, and most importantly, our clients will move forward. I want you to imagine for a second what life must be like right now for a middle school student. Think about this. One day, you're in March, you went home, you had to stop seeing your friends. You had to stop playing sports, or you couldn't go to hang out at a friend's house in the afternoon, or just anything. Couldn't do anything outside of the house. Think of the isolation and the loneliness. Now, think of that kid starting another school year at home, isolated, only interacting with their friends online, thinking of the toll that must take on them. Maybe you have a child at home. Maybe you have a friend or a relative who's experiencing this. It isn't easy, and it's scary, and it's confusing. And this time has been hard on all of us as adults too, but we rarely stop and think about the important life experiences our kids are missing out on. Sadly, that's going to have ramifications for their mental health in the months and years to come. Our youth are going to need more support than ever. CHADS knows this, and CHADS is preparing for it now. They're planning to reach out and do more than ever before to help our community's youth heal. I'd like to introduce you to Colleen Pace, the program director at CHADS, who will share her insights into all of this, how things have changed at CHADS, the needs her team is seeing on the ground, and how they're adapting. Then we're going to hear from more amazing people to talk about that staggering need going forward.
Thanks, Jean. We've been working hard all summer at CHADS to help cope with everything that's happening with COVID-19 and the pandemic. Since schools closed back in March, we've really been working hard to identify how it's impacting our kids. And what we've noticed is that a lot of kids are struggling even more with anxiety, the disruption to their routine, not being able to be around their peers, the added stress that might come with being at home all of the time, seeing their parents go through stressful events as well. It's really impacting our youth. And so we've been working really hard to make sure that we have our programs set up so that we can see as many kids as possible. For our family support counseling program, that means we are using telebehavioral health to conduct our therapy sessions. So if kids are in the school, if they're at home, wherever they are, they can still participate in their counseling sessions with their designated CHADS therapist. Our mentoring is set up pretty much the same as our counseling session. That's our one-on-one social emotional learning program. And we can see kids whether they're in school or if they're at home, if it's in the evenings or on the weekends, whatever works best for that family and for that child. That's what we want to be able to do. Also for our Signs of Suicide program, which is our classroom-based program, we've been working on a lot of different ways that we can still have healthy conversations about mental health, and most importantly, how our kids can get help for themselves or for a friend. So sometimes that means virtually facilitating a conversation while kids are in the classroom. We've also created a program called Act at Home so that they can participate in a guided discussion about mental health and healthy coping skills and resources that are available to them, and also connecting them with a school counselor either that day or that week so that they have that point of contact. It's certainly been an adventure working from home. I know internet capabilities are always changing. For me personally, my cat is always running around somewhere. She makes a lot of appearances on my Zoom calls and other video conferences. But we're doing our best to make sure that we have services in the place that they need to be so that we can help as many kids as possible this coming fall. We're excited. All of our staff are ready to get back to see these kids. Because everything was so disrupted all of a sudden, we didn't get to end the year the way that we normally would. And so I know all of our staff are just really excited to start seeing clients again, seeing their kids, facilitating these presentations, and making sure that we're helping as many people as possible, especially during such a difficult time.
CHADS has been pretty profoundly impacted by COVID-19. Kids are going back to school, but they're not going back to school. What CHADS does is really important. So how do we do that in an ethical, responsible way and also continue to deliver services?
Everything changed after the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, let's be honest, no one was prepared for this type of drastic shift in the way that students were being educated. So we were kind of at a standstill.
When the pandemic really first kicked off, tremendous response from the CHADS programmatic staff to get a telebehavioral health program off the ground in just a couple of days.
We took this time to develop a game plan, and so now we are prepared to do these presentations in a different way, and in a way that's not what we're used to, but one that we still think is effective and still safe and ultimately gives the support that the students need.
Families need support. We're all going through this pandemic sort of together alone, and so being more intentional about connecting is really important.
Now that everyone's at home and not having those interactions, it's even more important that children have outlets, that children are able to reach people who can support them. We want to make sure that people have support, that these children don't feel that they're alone.
School systems, they have counselors, they have social workers, but there's so many kids. It's really easy for kids to fall through the cracks. CHADS is trying to fill that gap because we really do need a community in order to pay attention to the welfare of our next generation.
You know, the last thing that we want to do is give this information virtually and not be in touch and not, support these children.
CHADS is doing the best that we can to adapt and to provide the services as they need to be provided.
These services are even more pressing because people are feeling depressed. People are facing financial hardship. People are experiencing separation because of the social distancing and things of that sort. So people need help when it comes to their mental well-being, their emotional well-being.
CHADS is doing really important work. They're doing it in a very responsible, ethical way. I don't see any reason that that can't keep going and growing.
There are not many organizations that have been doing this work beforehand, but in addition to that, have modified and improved to meet the needs of the now. There are not a lot of organizations like that, but CHADS is one of them.
I hope that CHADS is able to impact people across the nation and across the globe.
No one wanted to see this happen. It definitely changed our plans. But I do think that when this is all said and done, we're going to come out stronger.
Thank you to Colleen and everyone who shared their expertise. Once again, I'm blown away by the amount of knowledge and just the compassion on this team. You're all special people doing incredible work. A lot of businesses and organizations weren't able to pivot after the pandemic started, but I can't say enough about how amazed I am that a growing nonprofit like CHADS was able to stay one step ahead of the crisis and keep doing what we're doing. The quick decisions, saving lives every day, I just can't say enough about how amazed I am. Now, I'd like to turn it over again to Ben Chambers. Ben is CHADS Development Director, and let him take a look at how life has changed for everyone doing this work.
Hi, my name is Ben Chambers, and I'm the Development Director here at CHADS Coalition. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and everyone who shared their story. There's so many powerful stories about what CHADS has done this year, and I'd say from where I sit, I never thought I'd see anything like what we've seen over the last 6 months. I'll never forget those days in March when we realized the gravity of this situation and everything that could go wrong for us, the ways it was going to be such a challenge to keep delivering our services. And I'm just amazed every day at the work my coworkers are doing, packing literally years of work designing these virtual programs into a matter of days so we can keep serving our community and serving kids as we go forward. So it's amazing what's happened and what's continuing to happen. And I thank everyone here for supporting it and for being here with us. And I hope we can all move forward through this together. Again, thank you so much.
Now, let's hand it back to Marion to talk about a couple of important things. How schools are navigating the start to the school year, and how students are adapting to another crisis, the ongoing struggle with systemic racism in our country.
Thank you, Jean. I continue to be amazed at the stories our staff have to share. And I thank everyone who helped with these videos or recorded their thoughts on what we're doing at CHADS. I'm so grateful to every one of you for being involved with our work. Looking ahead to this school year and the school years to come, it's staggering to think about the problems our youth will face. On top of a pandemic, the last few months have exposed us to the ugly reality of systemic racism in our communities. My heart breaks for all the youth and families who live with the reality of racism on a daily basis. And CHADS will do everything possible to be there in the community to offer support. We know systemic racism impacts Black mental health, and we will do everything possible to meet that need in communities experiencing oppression. It begins with CHADS affirming this basic truth: Black lives matter. So many suffered for so long because of the color of their skin, and that can't continue. Our programs will operate off of that principle, addressing community trauma and providing an affirming, supporting presence. The dual crises of COVID-19 and systemic racism will impact our youth for years to come. Thankfully, CHADS is prepared to do that work. The data proves that our programs work, and that will be just as true going forward as it was before these crises hit. In 2019, our Signs of Suicide presentation inspired 14.3% of the students in our classes to come forward and ask for help. That comes out to 7,311 young people who were struggling and decided to come forward and ask for help. Those numbers are sure to rise with the crises we're facing. But our evidence-based programs will be there to connect with them. For young people who are deeply in crisis, our family support program has been a life-saving service. Nearly half of those clients come to us suicidal, but almost 80% see reduction in symptoms after working with our counselors. Those are youth in incredible pain who are finding the support and healing they need when they come to CHADS. Sadly, with COVID-19 showing no end in sight, we expect to see even more kids like that in the year ahead. The third component of our program, social and emotional mentoring, is critically important in these challenging times. This early intervention starts with kids in elementary school and provides structured one-on-one support to students who school staff feel could benefit from it. Mentoring transitioned to a virtual format in the spring, and schools throughout the region have been reaching out to us to add the service. The most important thing our kids can have right now is caring, affirming support, and we'll be here to provide it wherever it is needed. As hard as things are, we know our programs are making a difference. We'll be dealing with the mental health fallout of COVID-19 and systemic racism for years, but CHADS is ready to be there. With your support, our presence will be even stronger. Now, I'd like to hand it back over to Jean to talk about some ways that you'll be able to show your support to CHADS.
Thanks, Marion. You've heard so much tonight about all CHADS is doing to save lives in our community. Quick decisions, dedicated work from staff, compassionate attitude moving forward. These are all traits that are saving lives. Here's the catch. With all of that, they need you to make it possible. CHADS depends on community partners to power their work as they reach out into schools and homes throughout the community. Simply put, they need you. It's going to be a team effort, getting to the other side of this crisis and reaching all those kids that need help. Now, I can talk all day about how important it is to support CHADS, but I want to turn it over to the Vice President of the CHADS Board of Directors, Tim Mickelson, to tell you why he supports CHADS and the healing your support can bring.
Hi, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight at the 2020 CHADS Gala. It's very important that you're here tonight because you help us make a difference. And especially this year of all years, we appreciate your joining us virtually. CHADS asked me to speak a little bit about my son, Nathan. This is Nathan Lee Mickelson. This is when he was 4 years old. He wanted to be a pilot just like his uncle Gary. He was wearing Gary's pilot hat. And Gary was a Delta pilot, and Nathan was determined to be a pilot when he grew up. And here he is when he graduated from high school. Washington Senior High School. He was captain of the football team, loved to play football, and loved the kids. He was always the popular one, the one everyone went to for advice and for comfort. It was 16 years ago last week that my son Nathan took his life. A friend said to me, "You've just gone through the most painful thing you'll ever have to go through as a parent." But I can tell you, burying my son was not the hardest thing. Rather, burying my hopes for my son and my dreams for my son. That was the hardest thing. I knew that I had to find a way to heal. And somehow, through all of this pain, something wondrous happened. I met Marion and Larry McCord at a conference, and we shared stories about our sons, who had died within just months of each other, and who were very near the same age. One 18 years old, one 19 years old. A spark began to flicker inside of me at that point, and I learned that the best way for me to heal was to help others heal. What began as a story of loss and pain for me has become a story of helping and healing others. And it has taught me that I must not ever bury my hope for my son, Nathan. I must hold it out for others. I must give it to others to help them heal. CHADS is hope. And I choose to support the work of CHADS because I choose to invest in hope. Hope in our children and hope in ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim, for sharing your story and turning it into healing for your family and so many others. Now, I'm inviting you to join Tim and so many others in supporting the life-saving work of CHADS. Now, this is going to work a little differently than in the past. We don't have a raffle, we don't have an auction, we don't have a wine pull. This is it. This is your only chance to give to CHADS tonight. Maybe at last year's gala you divided up your giving, but this year I'd ask you to think about how much you're normally spending at this event and take that into consideration when you decide how to give. I'm going to read off some giving levels, and we couldn't make it any easier for you to give. If you want to donate now or make a pledge online, just open up the camera on your smartphone and click the link that shows up when you focus on the QR code on screen. Type in the bit.ly link or click the button right below the video in your browser. It's that easy. You choose. You'll fill out a quick form and be done in just about a minute. If you prefer to make your gift or pledge offline, then please call 636-271-5634. That's 636-271-5634. And leave a message with your name, donation amount, and your phone number. And they'll call you within 48 hours and arrange the best way to pay for your pledge. You can mail in a check, you can pay with a gift of stock, or give a gift from a donor-advised fund. Whatever is best for you, CHADS will work closely with you to make it all possible. All gifts and pledges submitted online will be entered into the ticker running on the screen down below. It'll take a minute to process, but as the gifts come in, you'll see all the community support pouring in for this great organization. Don't forget to check the appropriate box if you want to remain anonymous. Now, let's kick it off with our first level, $39.31. That's $3,931. You can also pay this as a $328 monthly pledge. A gift at this level will pay for CHADS family support counseling in a school for an entire semester. This year, that will mean life-saving telebehavioral health services for students who are battling loneliness, isolation, and all the other terrible things that come along with this pandemic. Giving at this level has been a transformative impact. Just think of the difference that you could make for the entire community. The next level is $2,142 or $179 a month. Now, giving at this level will provide social, emotional mentoring to a school for an entire semester, which will be provided remotely as telementoring. Think of all those kids who need just a little more one-on-one support. Maybe there's a bit of trouble at home, or they're just struggling to make friends, or something of that nature. Think how powerful it would be to give that support to a whole school. With a gift at this level, you can do exactly that. Next, you could choose to give $982 or $82 a month to support Signs of Suicide, SOS, in a school for this semester. This program will be taking on new life this year by functioning in two different ways. For students in classrooms, our facilitators will provide the program virtually. For students at home, we'll provide an impactful presentation with a life-saving message and affirming support. No matter the setting, we will be there to connect with these kids and give them the strength that they need to talk to an adult if they need help. Now, we have the option of giving $687 or $57 a month to support one student through the Social Emotional Mentoring Program, which is great. Through telementoring, one student who needs extra support will get that support. Like I said before, think of all those kids who need that regular time to check in and have a supportive one-on-one conversation. Your gift will provide exactly that to a student. Finally, for $246 or $20 a month, you can support our remote SOS program. If you haven't given yet, you can get some serious bang for your buck at this level. Think of all the things we pay $20 a month for: streaming services, other subscriptions, all sorts of things. But do those give you the satisfaction of saving lives? Absolutely not. But your gift to CHADS will. Let's fill that ticker with gifts and give hope to everyone in our community, to everyone who gave, all those names going across the ticker, and all those who are anonymous. I cannot thank you enough. The support for CHADS is amazing, and you're making an incredible difference for youth and families who, sadly, they need your support right now. In case you missed the chance to give, here's one more look at the levels and the QR code if you can zap it if you want to. Also remember, you can call 636-271-5634. That's 636-271-5634. And leave a message, and CHADS will process your gift within the next 48 hours. However you choose to give, it is so important that we all do our part tonight. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this virtual journey with me and with CHADS tonight. And before we close, your event gift bag should have included a small candle. This is a good time to find that candle for a special moment. I'd like to hand it over to Marion to close out the night.
Thank you so much, Jean. And to everyone who stepped up to support CHADS tonight, I'd like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. So many people are hurting right now, but your selflessness and generosity will truly make a difference. It's not an exaggeration to say that you're saving lives. I'd also like to give a shout out to everyone who made this event possible. Our co-chairs, Amy and Michelle, worked so hard to make this event a success, along with the full committee and our staff. I'm so grateful for the dedication they bring to the table and all they do to help youth and families. To close the event tonight, I'd like to extend a special invitation. Normally, at this point in our illumination ball, we'd light up the night with a fireworks display. Since we can't do that this year, we'd like to light up the night in another way. In your event gift bag, you'll find a small candle. We'd like to invite you to light that candle and place it in your window in remembrance of all we have lost to suicide and as a beacon of hope for all who are struggling. Across the St. Louis region and across the country, we'll be sharing a message of hope with those who need it most. Again, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your commitment to saving young lives. I sincerely hope we'll be able to gather in person and celebrate together next year.
you.